Welcome to Chapter 3, The Invisible Stinks. I'm reading The Day We Met the Queen by Anjali Q. Ralph. For the rest of the day, the whole school and everyone in it smelt of farts mixed together with the stink of old dustbins. But the smell wasn't nearly as bad as seeing Ahmet go quiet and sad. Josie and Michael tried to cheer him up by saying that the assembly didn't matter because the Queen was still going to be waiting for us. And Tom gave him a sticker of a famous footballer at lunchtime, and I gave him all the lemon sherbets I had. But Ahmet still stayed quiet and sad, which made us all feel quiet and sad too. It didn't help that the school stunk so bad that it felt as if we might never be able to smell anything normal or nice again. Our librarian, Mrs. Finicky, was so disgusted by the pong everyone was carrying with them that she closed the library for the whole day. She said it was because she didn't want any of her books to smell as badly as we did, and that humans were easier to wash clean than paper pages. And Mrs. Saunders did something that no one has ever heard of her doing in the whole history of the school. She cancelled every single one of her after-school detention sessions. She said having the smell like garbage all day was punishment enough for everyone, and that it was her duty to the planet to make sure we all got home as quickly as we could so we could take a shower. But the person I felt most sorry for was Mr. Whittaker, the school cleaner, because 13 people in the school were sick straight after the assembly, and most of the people being sick were the teachers. He had a lot more cleaning up to do than if it had been just us kids throwing up. Usually no one ever saw Mr. Whittaker, but on this day I saw him at least 20 times, running up and down the corridors with a mop and bucket and muttering angrily at everyone who passed by him. "Man," said Tom, shaking his head as we all made our way out into the playground at home time and heard a mop and bucket clanking past us. "I think Mr. Whittaker is going to need a holiday after today." "Yes," said Ahmet, "and new mop too." I grinned at Ahmet and gave him a thumbs up. Now that he was beginning to speak English more and we could understand him better, his jokes were getting funnier. "I hope we don't still smell tomorrow when we go to see the Queen," said Michael, waving his arms up and down in the air as if that would help make the stench go away. But it didn't. Instead, it made him trip on his undone shoelaces. He would have fallen over, but Ahmet caught his arm and stopped him. "Thanks, Ahmet," said Michael, pushing up his glasses. Michael never thanks any of the rest of us when we stop him from banging into things or falling over. He only ever thanks Ahmet. And it always makes Ahmet shrug, and Tom gives an almost invisible scowl. "I see you tomorrow, yes?" asked Ahmet, spotting his foster mum waving at him through the school gates. She was wearing the same long red woolly scarf that she always wore, and today her blonde hair was blowing around in the wind, so much it looked as if it was trying to be a scarf too. "Yes," I said. "You are coming to my house tomorrow so that my Uncle Lenny can drive us to the Queen's." Ahmet nodded, and giving us all a wave, ran off to join his foster mother. We watched as he reached her and stood stiffly, like a soldier in an army, so that she could bend down to give him a hug. I guess he always stood like that because she wasn't his real mum, and he was still waiting for his real mum to come and join him. His foster mum never seemed to care. She always hugged him and ruffled his hair anyway. But today, as she was hugging him, her usually smiley face began to frown. "Ooh, I think the stink's got up her nose," whispered Tom. Ahmet's foster mum quickly stood up straight and, taking a step back, shook her head and made a funny noise with her throat, like a goose choking on a peanut. "Someone should have warned her," said Tom, shaking his head. "As soon as I get home, I'm going to tell everyone to hold their breath until I've had a shower. Especially Dad, he's got asthma. One sniff of me, it could finish him off." "Guys, what if we do still smell this bad tomorrow?" asked Josie. Grabbing her plait, she tried to pull it close to her nose so that she could smell it. "Ugh!" she cried, wrinkling her freckles. "It doesn't even reach and I can smell it. The Queen might throw up. Then she'll have us arrested." "Wait, maybe that was his plan," I explained, giving Tom a punch on the arm. Tom rubbed the spot and looked at me, confused. "What plan?" asked Tom. Whose plan? You know, I explained. Brendan the bully's. He was the one who set off all those stink bombs. I know he was. What if he stink bombed the whole school, but not just to ruin the assembly, but so that we smelled so bad tomorrow that the Queen's Guard would stop us from seeing her? Josie, Michael and Tom stopped and stared at me with their mouths open. After exactly 2 seconds, they all shook their heads. Nah, Brendan the bully's not that clever, said Tom. And we don't know for sure that it was him, said Josie. I agree, added Michael, frowning. We shouldn't think it was him right away just because we don't like him. Mum's always saying we shouldn't cloud our brains with bad judgments, or the wrong person gets blamed and put in jail. We have to see the evidence. Tom and Josie nodded in agreement, because Michael's mum was a lawyer who was always rescuing people and trying to make people's judgments act fair again. I looked around the playground to see if Brendan the bully was close by. Maybe if they could see all his smirky lips, they would know I wasn't being unfair. But I couldn't see him anywhere. Instead, I saw Jenny, who ran the school newspaper, with a crowd gathering around her. Come on, there's Jenny, I said, grabbing Josie's arm and dragging her after me. She might know more about what happened. We ran over and joined the whispering crowd standing in a circle around Jenny. As the school's news reporter, Jenny spies and listens and tells everyone everything about what's going on in school. The only problem is she's not a very good reporter, because her stories often have lots of bits in them that aren't true. But because she mixes them up with bits that are true, no one can tell the difference, except the person the story is about. Most people just believe her because it's easy, and they don't have to think hard about it. What's she saying? Asked Tom, leaning in. A boy in front of us, who was from the year below, looked over and whispered, She says she knows who the stink bombers are, but she can't tell us their names because they're part of a gang. No way, whispered Josie, as Jenny began to speak even louder so that everyone could hear her. Yeah, an international gang, and today was the day they wanted everyone to know they're real, shouted Jenny, grabbing her 2 long plaits and twisting and untwisting them around her hands like smooth brown snakes. There's one of them in every school in the world now, and that means every school is going to get stink bombed one day. But they picked our school first, and they picked today because they knew the reporters were going to be here and because we're already famous because of that Armitt kid. What's the name of the gang? Asked someone as we all huddled in closer. Yeah, and what's their symbol? Is it like a fart cloud? Shouted someone else. How come we've never heard of them before? Asked a girl standing in front of Michael. Standing on her tiptoes, Jenny popped her head up above everybody else's, like a submarine's eyes, to check for eavesdroppers and enemy reporters who might steal her story, and then crouching back down, whispered loudly, I'm not supposed to know this, but I'll tell you. The gang is called the Invisible Stinks, and their mission is to make sure that everyone is... What's happening here, then? We all jumped away from Jenny as Mr. Whittaker's large balding head and brown uniform broke through the crowd and loomed over us. Anyone been sick? Because if they have, they can bleed in buckets well clean it up themselves. Everyone stared up at Mr. Whittaker in silence. Go on then, off with you. If you're not puking your guts out, you should be getting yourselves home and cleaning up so you smell human again. And waving us away, Mr. Whittaker headed back into the school. A car horn beeped across the air, making Jenny jump up and grab her bag. I'll tell you more on Monday, she shouted as she ran over to her dad's car. But we can't wait till Monday, said Tom grumpily to us as the crowd broke up and we headed to the bus stop. The Invisible Stink Gang could strike anywhere. What if they target the palace next? Asked Josie, walking faster and faster so that we could get to the bus stop before the next bus. We boarded the bus home along with everybody else from school who needed to go in the same direction. After a minute or two, the grown-ups, already on the bus, started to frown, just like Armitt's foster mum had done. Some of them held their noses shut with the tips of their fingers. Others shuffled in their seats and tutted loudly, trying to move their faces closer to the open windows. And after a few seconds, a dog began to howl. By the 3rd stop, the whole bus was empty of anyone who wasn't from school. That was fun, said Tom as he jumped off at our stop. "I think I might join the Invisible Stink Gang if it means I can get a seat on the bus every day." "You do know that's not the real name of a real gang, don't you?" I said, rolling my eyes. I couldn't believe that Tom had actually fallen for Jenny's story. Jenny was making that up. It was Brendan the bully who did it. I know it was him. It was him and Chris and Liam punishing Armut for nearly getting them expelled. "But they were all sitting together in assembly, remember?" Josie reminded me. "And the stink bombs were coming from everywhere." "They got some other people to help," I said. "Other bullies in the school who don't like Armut." "But no one saw them do it," said Michael, shrugging. "Not even you. So you can't be sure." But I was sure, and I was going to prove it. All I needed was a little help from the Queen.